Well, last night, Death Stranding finally released to the public, and I went ahead and played it for a couple of hours last night, and then I played it a couple more hours today as I've had time, because, to be honest, when you sit down and play that game, it's not like sit down for 15 or 20 minutes to get a little bit of time in. You pretty much commit when you sit down with that game. You're spending at least an hour per session playing, because most times delivery, it's gonna take a little bit of time, then you got cutscenes on either side. It all adds up, and you end up basically sitting there for quite a bit of time. And wouldn't you know it, it's getting review bombed. I'm not surprised to see this. We've seen this with a lot of games, right? I mean, we talked about it with Astral Chain at one point. That got review bombed, although it seemed to get review bombed because it was only on the Switch. Although some people just didn't think it was very good, I guess, and wanted to lower the score for the user score. And of course, we've talked about this before. Basically, user scores on Metacritic end up meaning pretty much nothing after a while. In fact, Metacritic even will go through and just remove a lot of these reviews, so it ends up kind of being a waste of time. From what I can tell, people go there, leave negative reviews on the game because they don't like either the scores that it got from critics, or they just don't like the way the game looks, or the fact that it's on one platform. Those are all the things that kind of contribute to this. And then to kind of counteract that, people show up who have also not played enough of the game at all to even give it a review score. Half the time they'll even play the game, and then they will counteract that with high reviews, generally 10s, perfect 10s. I mean, think about how tough I think it should be for a reviewer to give out a perfect score to any game, and there's just 10s all over the place for Metacritic, and then there are zeros on the other side. It's very difficult to give out a 0. It's also very difficult to give out a 10. So we take a look at some of these user scores on Metacritic. Like I said, I've played, I think at this point, I'm right at the 5-hour mark in Death Stranding, and I do feel like they have started explaining more. I'm surprised they've explained so much story already. I thought this was going to be a situation where I had like no idea what was going on through the first 10 hours, because a lot of people said, oh, it takes, 10 hours to get good. I think around that mark, it's supposed to be after like chapter 3 or 4 where things start to pick up according to reviewers. And I'm actually getting close to the end of, I think right at the end of chapter 2 now, I think. So I believe it's going to start picking up even a bit more. And I'm already starting to kind of really get into the story a bit here. They leave some interesting stuff in like your private room you can read. And I'm at least getting into the lore. However, that is what's pretty much pulling me forward at this point, because if what I'm doing now is the entire game, I can see why some people stopped playing, and some people like Edge didn't even review the game when it came out because they couldn't. It's going to be a bit of a slog for a lot of people. But it is a polarizing game, as we would expect. If you take a look at the Metacritic, it's a 6.4 for the user score, and it's a 1,503 positive scores compared to 940 negative scores. Yes, there's quite a bit of reviewing going on here from users, considering the game has been out for, I think at this point, a little over 12 hours time of this recording. So it obviously people haven't had enough time to get through what's supposed to be a 35 to 40 hour game to experience it in total and kind of sit back and reflect on it. I don't think anyone's really qualified to throw out a review score. I think people can say, I stopped playing it because of this reason, or I don't like it because of that reason. Maybe you're like me and you were going through a river and you thought you could make it, and then halfway through you realize your stamina bar is almost gone, and then your character falls over and all of that cargo you were transporting floats down the river while you wash up on the shore, and you stop and then look at the screen and kind of just mutter to yourself for the first time that you can remember doing it, saying, I hate this game. Those are just some of the experiences I've had with this game so far. It's been frustrating at times, yes, and it's been great to look at. Okay, visually it's amazing. So it's been a whirlwind of emotions in 5 hours. But let's start off with some of the negative reviews here. I did notice there were quite a few zeros that were popping up. Here's one saying, I thought people were exaggerating by calling this game a walking simulator, but boy, that's what it is. Yeah, I mean, the gameplay is technically a walking simulator. It's like the next level. It's like next generation walking simulator, essentially, because you scan the ground and when you're walking, you have to kind of be careful of things around you. Maybe you're carrying quite a bit of stuff on your back and it's tipping over. You can pretty much balance it with R2 and L2. So it's really, to lose your balance, you have to, I think you have to really try, or you just have to be impatient like me and just start sprinting, or just say, you know what, I'm going to try to push through this river. Here's another one. I'm a huge fan of Hideo Kojima's body of work, and it hurts me to say this, but Death Stranding is quite possibly one of the most pretentious, narcissistic, and worst video games ever made. Run unchecked, Kojima has made a new genre called Strand Action. It is just a glorified walking simulator with undercooked asynchronous multiplayer system, lame duck third-person melee, etc. I still don't think it's a 0, just because of the amount of time, effort, and work put into building this the world. It is fascinating, the amount of lore he's thrown in here with a new IP, and that is one of the hardest things to do with a game, is build a very interesting story. Unfortunately, I will admit, the gameplay, yeah, it's it's going to turn a lot of people off, and I feel like at times my biggest concern about the game so far is that it will feel artificially lengthened. Like, I think it's 35 to 40 hours because you spend a vast majority of that time like just walking between points. And let's say you start with some way immediately, and you always have it, like a bike. You have a bike in the beginning and then it goes off a cliff, but I know you get them later on. But I mean, like, if you just always had that, right? Because that would make sense, right? To kind of obviously travel with something that will get you there faster. And maybe there were points where you got off of it. That would probably cut the game in half in terms of time played, based on, again, what I've seen in some of my travels and what people have described so far. Sorry, but this is a very boring game. Wish it was good, but a game is not great just because you like, I think that's supposed to be maker, not marker. And that is an interesting thing that's been brought up a lot. If Kojima was not the creator of this game, right, would as many people like it? Like, if it was just thrown out there as a no-name indie game that had a new developer and they just happen to get backed by a big company like a Sony or a Microsoft, and this is what they created, would people be on board this much? And I'm not sure. That is unfortunately, we'll never know the answer to it, right? Unless I guess an indie company or a developer or somebody else takes this exact idea and kind of builds on it, like the gameplay mechanics where you're walking and right, you have the asynchronous multiplayer. I don't know. Unfortunately, we'll never know if that really is it, if Kojima stamp is what's causing some of those perfect scores that we saw from Critic. Very, very disappointing. The game is ruined by awful gameplay mechanics, probably going to be selling after 5 hours. He couldn't decide if he wanted to make a film or a game. So I don't think, from, again, where I'm in right now, I don't think 5 hours is enough to experience the game or even make a determination on it. The first hour and a half, I will say, maybe 2 hours, it was bulk cutscenes. Very, very minimal gameplay. So just right there, you probably haven't experienced much of the game. There was like one part in the beginning where it's like a tutorial section where you have to pick up your luggage that you dropped, and then you got to like throw on your back and get back to town, basically. But for the most part, it was trying to introduce the characters, introduce the world, the story, and a lot of that took quite a bit of time. So if you're picking this game up tonight, for example, grab some popcorn on the way home, because you're going to be sitting there with the controller next to you for quite a bit. But you can, for the most part, see it's a lot of zeros, a lot of ones, zeros. There's a 3. Okay, that's not... this game is complete trash in terms of gameplay. Gameplay loop completely dreadful. Doesn't do anything new outside of make your controller cry. If you're really in need of a baby crying simulator, and go for it. You might actually like it. I mean, the gameplay is just... It is boring. I'm going to admit that it is boring so far. Again, I need to play a bit more of it, but I can see why some people are going to play this game for 5, 6, 7 hours and return it, because it's just... It has not... I don't really know how to describe the gameplay and why it's the way it is. It's very strange they went in that direction. I almost wonder if Kojima wanted to do something similar to this before, and Konami like was pushy with the gameplay mechanics. So like, well, no, it has to have gameplay. It has to have, like, you know, some good gameplay to it. And then maybe him and his team worked on it, because it does sound like, according to sources, that a lot of his team that made Metal Gear Solid went and made Death Stranding. So that's the only thing I think of, is that he was pushed by Konami to include, you know, some good gameplay that a lot of us really liked with Metal Gear Solid, and now he's thinking more along the lines of, I'm going to try to design a new gameplay aspect that is literally walking back and forth between points, which are essentially, yes, they're fetch quests. So I'm seeing a lot of, it's just ones and zeros. I'm not sure how many people have played very long with this game so far, because it's recently become public. So I do wonder if any of the people, their tones will change as they play through it, like mine might. But let's take a look at some of the positive scores. So as I have a hard time believing a lot of those negative scores that people actually had a chance to play enough of the game to make a determination, I feel the same way for the perfect scores, because giving a perfect 10 for a game should be very difficult to do. Here's one at the top. This game is a piece of art. The industry has become numb to cookie cutter copy and paste games such as COD and Madden. I don't understand the game, so it has to be bad is the mindset. Think independently and give the game a shot. It is beautiful. The cookie cutter thing makes sense to me. However, a lot of indie developers are doing things outside of that. So I would say go check out indie developers, because a lot of those games would be considered having better gameplay right now, right? So I also don't like the reasoning that if you don't understand the game, then you don't like it. That's not the case. I don't think the story so far is very difficult to follow. I really don't. They haven't even explained everything, and I kind of have an idea what's happening, or it's about to happen. So they do a lot of alluding in the beginning of the game, and it doesn't seem that hard to follow. But I don't think... the gameplay is easy to understand. That's not the problem. I don't think you have to understand or you can't understand what's going on in the game. I don't think that's a good reason for to point to people not liking the game. Here's a funny one. This one says Metacritic must remove the user critic from this page. You can see a lot of haters or fanboys voting without playing the game, like me. Then the user critic should be linked with plays. Okay, yeah. So they gave it a 10. They said they haven't played the game. And that, again, runs into what the problem is with user scores. People are posting negative ones, even though they haven't played the game. And people posting extremely positive ones without playing the game, just to counteract those negative ones. There's another one saying, wow, I can't believe all the zeros this game is getting by who I'm sure are Xbots, hating that they don't have any games to look forward to. This ends up turning into a kind of a console fanboy, or in these user reviews. Okay, here's straight to the point. Not a game that all players will love, but a game that all players should try. You know what? That is an 8. I tend to agree with that. Yeah, so the problem we're running into right now with Death Stranding is that I think it is very difficult to post a review score on this game. I think this game really shows that review scores have evolved poorly, because, I mean, if you don't have a 9 or a 10, a lot of people see it as bad. 7 out of 10 is considered very bad, apparently, now. And I just don't think this game is I don't think it's going to really be an easy game to review with a number system. I think it literally is a game that you say, you got to try it. And here's the thing. If you've seen the gameplay and you say that game looks boring, I would wait to buy it. I don't think it's going to be $60 for, more than a year. And eventually I could see this dropping down in price. It could even go on PlayStation Now. But yeah, I still have a lot of time to put into this game. I'm going to play all the way through it. I'm going to see what it's all about here, and I will post a video hopefully by next week after I've completed it and viewed the last apparently 2-hour cutscene that people have talked about being in the game, and then I'll give my final thoughts on it. If you are unsure, if you've seen the gameplay, wait on it. It will go on sale at some point. That is my best advice I can give you. However, my other good piece of advice to give you is don't waste time posting these user scores on Metacritic, especially if you have not played enough of the game to actually make a determination on it. Thanks, guys, for watching. Let me know what you think about review bombing for Death Stranding. We talked about it before for Astral Chain, and now it's happening with Death Stranding. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.